Chapter 15 of The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 15 Officials. Spade and Detective Sergeant Polhouse ate pickled pig's feet at one of John's tables at the State's Hofbrau. Polhouse, balancing pale bright jelly on a fork halfway between plate and mouth, said, "Hey, listen, Sam. Forget about the other night. He was dead wrong, but you know anybody's liable to lose their head if you ride them like that." Spade looked thoughtfully at the police detective. "Was that what you wanted to see me about?" he asked. Polhouse nodded, put the forkful of jelly into his mouth, swallowed it, and qualified his nod. "Mostly." "Dundee send you?" Polhouse made a disgusted mouth. "You know he didn't. He's as bullheaded as you are." Spade smiled and shook his head. "No, he's not, Tom," he said. "He just thinks he is." Tom scowled and chopped at his pig's foot with his knife. "Ain't you ever going to grow up?" he grumbled. "What have you got to beef about? He didn't hurt you. You came out on top. What's the sense of making a grudge of it? You're just making a lot of grief for yourself." Spade placed his knife and fork carefully together on his plate and put his hands on the table beside his plate. His smile was faint and devoid of warmth. "With every bull in town working overtime trying to pile up grief for me, a little more won't hurt. I won't even know it's there." Polhouse's ruddiness deepened. He said, "That's a swell thing to say to me." Spade picked up his knife and fork and began to eat. Polhouse ate. Presently Spade asked, "See the boat on fire in the bay?" "I saw the smoke." "Be reasonable, Sam. Dundee was wrong, and he knows it. Why don't you let it go at that?" "Think I ought to go around and tell him I hope my chin didn't hurt his fist?" Polhouse cut savagely at his pig's foot. Spade said, "Phil Archer been in with any more hot tips?" "Oh, hell, Dundee didn't think you shot Miles. But what else could he do except run the lead down? You'd have done the same thing in his place, and you know it." "Yes." Malice glittered in Spade's eyes. "What made him think I didn't do it? What makes you think I didn't? Or don't you?" Polhouse's ruddy face flushed again. He said, "Thursby shot Miles." "You think he did?" "He did. That Wembley was his, all right, and the slug in Miles came out of it." "Sure?" Spade demanded. "Dead sure," the police detective replied, in the tone of one without the least doubt. "We got hold of a kid, a bellhop at his hotel, that had seen it in his room just that morning. He noticed it particular because he never saw one like it before. I never saw one. You say they don't make them any more. It ain't likely there'd be another around, and anyway, if it wasn't Thursby's, what happened to his?" He started to put a piece of bread into his mouth, withdrew it, and asked, "You say you've seen them before. Where was that at?" He put the bread into his mouth. "In England, before the war." "Sure, there you are." Spade nodded and said, "Then that leaves Thursby the only one I killed?" Polhouse squirmed a little in his chair, and his face was red and shiny. "Oh, sake, ain't you ever going to forget that?" he complained earnestly. "That's out. You know it as well as I do. You'd think you wasn't a dick yourself, the way you bellyache over things. I suppose you don't never pull the same stuff on anybody that we pulled on you?" "You mean that you tried to pull on me, Tom. Just tried." Polhouse swore under his breath and attacked the remainder of his pig's foot. Spade said, "All right, you know it's out, and I know it's out. What does Dundee know?" "He knows it's out." "What woke him up?" "Oh, Sam, he never really thought you'd—" The irony in Spade's smile checked Polhouse. He left the sentence incomplete and said, "We dug up Thursby's record." "Yes? Who was he?" Polhouse's shrewd small brown eyes studied Spade's face. Spade exclaimed irritably. "I wish to God I knew half as much about this business as you smart guys think I do." "I wish we all did," Polehouse grumbled. "Well, he was a St. Louis gunman the first we hear of him. He was picked up a lot back there for this and that, but he belonged to the Egan mob, so nothing much was ever done about any of it. I don't know how come he left that shelter, but they got him once in New York for knocking over a row of Stuss games. His twist turned him up, and was in a year before Fallon sprung him. A couple of years later, he did a short hitch in Joliet for pistol-whipping another twist that had given him the needle, but after that he took up with Dixie Monahan, and didn't have much trouble getting out whenever he happened to get in. That's when Dixie was almost as big a shot as Nick the Greek in Chicago gambling. This Thursby was Dixie's bodyguard, and he took the run out with him when Dixie got in wrong with the rest of the boys over some debts he couldn't or wouldn't pay off. That was a couple of years back, about the time the Newport Beach Boating Club was shut up. I don't know if Dixie had anything to do with that. Anyway, this is the first time him or Thursby's been seen since." "Dixie's been seen?" Spade asked. Polehouse shook his head. "No." His small eyes became sharp, prying. "Not unless you've seen him, or know somebody's seen him." Spade lounged back in his chair and began to make a cigarette. "I haven't," he said mildly. "This is all new stuff to me." "I'll bet you," Polehouse snorted. Spade grinned and asked, "Where'd you pick up all the news about Thursby?" "Some of it's on the records. The rest, well, we got it here and there." "From Cairo, for instance?" Now Spade's eyes held the sharp, prying gleam. Polehouse put down his coffee cup and shook his head. "Not a word of it. You poisoned that guy for us." Spade laughed. "You mean a couple of high-class sleuths like you and Dundee worked on that lily of the valley all night and couldn't crack him?" "What do you mean all night?" Polehouse protested. "We worked on him for less than a couple of hours, saw we wasn't getting anywheres, and let him go." Spade laughed again and looked at his watch. He caught John's eye and asked for their check. "I've got a date with the DA this afternoon," he told Polehouse while they waited for his change. "He sent for you?" "Yes." Polehouse pushed his chair back and stood up, a barrel-bellied tall man, solid and phlegmatic. "You won't be doing me any favor," he said, "by telling him I've talked to you." A lathy youth with salient ears ushered Spade into the district attorney's office. Spade went in smiling easily, saying easily, "Hello, Brian." District Attorney Brian stood up and held his hand out across his desk. He was a blond man of medium stature, perhaps 45 years old, with aggressive blue eyes behind black-rimmed nose glasses, the overlarge mouth of an orator, and a wide dimpled chin. When he said, "How do you do, Spade?" his voice was resonant with latent power. They shook hands and sat down. The district attorney put his finger on one of the pearl buttons in a battery of 4 on his desk, said to the lathy youth who opened the door again, "Ask Mr. Thomas and Healy to come in," and then, rocking back in his chair, addressed Spade pleasantly, "You and the police haven't been hitting it off so well, have you?" Spade made a negligent gesture with the fingers of his right hand. "Nothing serious," he said lightly. "Dundee gets too enthusiastic." The door opened once more to admit 2 men. The one to whom Spade said, "Hello, Thomas," was a sunburned, stocky man of 30, with clothing and hair of a kindred unruliness. He clapped Spade on the shoulder with a freckled hand, asked, "How's tricks?" and sat down beside him. The second man was younger and colorless. He took a seat a little apart from the 3 and balanced a stenographer's notebook on his knee, holding a green pencil over it. Spade glanced his way, chuckled, and asked Brian, "Anything I say will be used against me?" The district attorney smiled. "That always holds good." He took his glasses off, looked at them, and set them on his nose again. He looked through them at Spade and asked, "Who killed Thursby?" Spade said, "I don't know." Brian rubbed his black eyeglass ribbon between thumb and fingers and said knowingly, "Perhaps you don't, but you certainly could make an excellent guess." "Maybe, but I wouldn't." The district attorney raised his eyebrows. "I wouldn't," Spade repeated. He was tranquil. "My guess might be excellent, or it might be crummy, but Mrs. Spade didn't raise any children dippy enough to make guesses in front of a district attorney, an assistant district attorney, and a stenographer. Why shouldn't you, if you've nothing to conceal?" "Everybody," Spade blandly responded, "has something to conceal." "And you have?" "My guesses, for one thing." The district attorney looked down at his desk, then up at Spade, settled his glasses more firmly on his nose, and said, "If you'd prefer not having the stenographer here, we can dismiss him. It was simply as a matter of convenience that I brought him in." "I don't mind him a damned bit," Spade replied. "I'm willing to have anything I say put down, and I'm willing to sign it." "We've no intention of asking you to sign anything," Brian assured him. "I wish you wouldn't regard this as a formal inquiry at all. And please don't think that I have any confidence or even belief in those theories the police seem to have formed." "No, not a particle." Spade sighed and crossed his legs. "I'm glad of that." He felt in his pockets for tobacco and cigarette papers. "What's your theory?" Brian leaned forward in his chair, and his eyes were hard and shiny as the lenses over them. "Tell me who Archer was shadowing Thursby for, and I'll tell you who killed Thursby." Spade's laugh was brief and scornful. "You're as wrong as Dundee," he said. "Don't misunderstand me, Spade." Brian knocked on the desk with his knuckles. "I don't say your client killed Thursby, or had him killed, but I do say that, knowing who your client is, or was, I'll mighty soon know who killed Thursby." Spade lighted his cigarette, removed it from his lips, blew his lungs empty of smoke, and spoke as if puzzled. "I don't exactly get that." "You don't? Then suppose I put it this way. Where is Dixie Monahan?" Spade's face retained its puzzled look. "Putting it that way doesn't help much," he said. "I still don't get it." The district attorney took his glasses off and shook them a little for emphasis. He said, "We know Thursby was Monahan's bodyguard, and went with him when Monahan found it wise to vanish from Chicago. We know Monahan welched on something like $200,000 worth of bets when he vanished. We don't know, not yet, who his creditors were." He put his glasses on again and smiled grimly. "But we all know what's likely to happen to a gambler who welches, and to his bodyguard when his creditors find him. It's happened before." Spade ran his tongue over his lips and pulled his lips back over his teeth in an ugly grin. His eyes glittered under pulled-down brows. His reddening neck bulged over the rim of his collar. His voice was low and hoarse and passionate. "Well, what do you think? Did I kill him for his creditors, or just find him and let them do their own killing?" "No, no," the district attorney protested. "You misunderstand me." "I hope to— I do," Spade said. "He didn't mean that," Thomas said. "Then what did he mean?" Spade asked. Brian waved a hand. "I only meant that you might have been involved in it without knowing what it was. That could—" "I see," Spade sneered. "You don't think I'm naughty. You just think I'm dumb." "Nonsense," Brian insisted. "Suppose someone came to you and engaged you to find Monahan, telling you they had reason to think he was in the city. The someone might give you a completely false story. Any one of a dozen or more would do, or might say he was a debtor who had run away without giving you the details. How could you tell what was behind it? How would you know it wasn't an ordinary piece of detective work? And under those circumstances, you certainly couldn't be held responsible for your part in it, unless—" His voice sank to a more impressive note, and his words came out spaced and distinct. "You made yourself an accomplice by concealing your knowledge of the murderer's identity or any information that would lead to his capture." Anger was leaving Spade's face. No anger remained in his voice when he asked, "That's what you meant?" "Exactly." "All right, then there's no hard feelings. But you're wrong. Show me." Spade shook his head. "I can't show you now. I can tell you." "Tell me." "Nobody ever hired me to do anything about Dixie Monahan." Brian and Thomas exchanged glances. Brian's eyes came back to Spade, and he said, "But by your own admission to the police, somebody did hire you to do something about Thursby, his bodyguard." "Yes, about Thursby, his ex-bodyguard." "Ex?" "Yes, ex." "You know that Thursby was no longer associated with Monahan? You know that positively?" Spade stretched out his hand and dropped the stub of his cigarette into a tray on the desk. He spoke carelessly. "I don't know anything positively except that my client wasn't interested in Monahan, had never been interested in Monahan. But I heard that Thursby took Monahan out to the Orient and lost him." Again the district attorney and his assistant exchanged glances. Thomas, in a tone whose striving for matter-of-factness did not quite hide excitement, said, "That opens another angle. Monahan's friends could have knocked Thursby off for ditching Monahan." "Dead gamblers don't have any friends," Spade said. "It opens up two new lines," Brian said. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling for several seconds, then sat upright quickly. His orator's face was alight. "It narrows it down to three things now. Number one, Thursby was killed by the gamblers Monahan had welched on in Chicago. Not knowing Thursby had ditched Monahan, or not believing it, they killed him because he had been Monahan's associate, or to get him out of the way so they could get at Monahan, or because he had refused to lead them to Monahan. Number two, he was killed by friends of Monahan. Or number three, he sold Monahan out to his enemies and then fell out with them and they killed him. Or number four," Spade suggested with a cheerful smile, "he died of old age. You folks aren't serious, are you?" The two men stared at Spade, but neither of them spoke. Spade turned his smile from one of them to the other and shook his head in mock pity. "You've got Arnold Rothstein on the brain," he said. Brian smacked the back of his right hand down into the palm of his left. "In one of those three categories lies the solution." The power in his voice was no longer latent. His right hand, a fist except for the protruding forefinger, went up and then down to stop with a jerk when the finger was leveled at Spade's chest. "And you can give us the information that will enable us to determine the category." Spade said, "Yes," very slowly. His face was somber. He touched his lower lip with the finger, looked at the finger, and then scratched the back of his neck with it. Little irritable lines had appeared in his forehead. He blew his breath heavily out through his nose, and his voice was an ill-humored growl. "You wouldn't want the kind of information I could give you, Brian. You couldn't use it. It'd have pooped this gambler's revenge scenario for you." Brian sat up straight and squared his shoulders. His voice was stern without bluster. "You are not the judge of that. Right or wrong, I'm nevertheless the district attorney." Spade's lifted lip showed his eye-tooth. "I thought this was an informal talk." "I am a sworn officer of the law 24 hours a day," Brian said, "and neither formality nor informality justifies your withholding evidence of crime from me. Except, of course," he nodded meaningly, "on certain constitutional grounds." "You mean if the information might incriminate me?" Spade asked. His voice was placid, almost amused, but his face was not. "Well, I've got grounds that suit me better than those. My clients are entitled to have their affairs kept confidential. Maybe I could be made to talk to a grand jury, or even a coroner's jury, but I haven't been called before either yet, and it's a cinch I'm not going to publish any of my client's secrets until I have to. Then again, you and the police have both accused me of being mixed up in the other night's murders. I've had trouble with both of you before. So far as I can see, my best chance of clearing myself is by bringing in the murderers all tied up. And my only chance of ever catching them and tying them up and bringing them in is in keeping away from you and the police, because neither of you show any signs of knowing what the hell it's all about." He got up and turned his head over his shoulder to address the stenographer. "Getting this all right, son? Or am I going too fast for you?" The stenographer looked up at him with startled eyes and replied, "No, sir, I'm getting it all right." "Good work," Spade said, and turned to Brian again. "Now, if you want to go to the board and tell them I'm obstructing justice and ask them to revoke my license, hop to it. You've tried it before, and it didn't get you anything but a laugh." He picked up his hat. Brian began. "Look here, you," Spade said, "and I don't want any more of these informal talks. I've got nothing to tell you, and I'm damn tired of being called things by every crackpot on the city payroll. If you want to see me, pinch me or subpoena me or something, and I'll come down with my lawyer." He put his hat on his head, said, "See you at the inquest, maybe," and stalked out. End of chapter 15.